Welcome back to Marvel Puzzle Quest with me, P.I. McLeod, and I'm on a new phone. Don't expect anything to change on this stream, though. I can't imagine the new phone's going to affect this at all, but this is just my way of saying that if a volume sounds off or something's a little different, I'm still learning the new phone. That's about it. Anyways, shouldn't be any real difference. Come on. It's just a phone. Anywho, so first order of business today, before I get to crashing some Titans like I do every Sunday evening, let's get into 5 stars of 2022. This is some of the creme de la creme, the top tiers, the metas that we use nowadays. There's still some metas currently that we have from previous years, but there's some people that show up from our current meta, our nowadays meta, that are in 2022 that came from this humble year. I don't care who I'm selecting against, we're just going to get it. And you can see one of them right there needs a little bit of revival, but I'll throw him a bone, why not? Anyways, let's alphabetize it, filter by 5 stars. We're going to start at the top, do alphabetical order. Some people will be put into their correct order. I mean, Riri Williams, aka Ironheart, she'll go in the R's where she belongs. Let's start with, at the top of the order, Abigail Brand. Now, when we rate these things going forward from here, I want you to know that I'm rating them low, mid, or high tier with maybe a little fluctuation, like a high low tier or a low mid tier, something like that, right? This isn't to be taken as like be better than the other characters in the other classes or the other anything. It's more about comparing it to the other characters of this year, and that's it, okay? Don't be trying to think that 2022's high tier is necessarily better than someone from 2021 or 2020's high tier. I'm not rating them like that. We're just going year by year. So when I say this, I'm saying this because, well, there's quite a few doozies in this one, and some people are going to be rated mid or low compared to other people in this year, and that's as far as you could take it. Okay. Also, keep in mind that these are ratings of just the characters individually. Some characters deserve a little more love than this, and that's because they work really good with a team, but they just don't shine solo. Yeah, I think you'll understand as I go through. First up, Abigail Brand. Abigail Brand, the Commander of Sword, it's pretty easy to rank her as a low tier right off the rip going in. But hey, let me explain to you why. We're going to start off right at the top of her list, the peak performance. It's 8 purple. She basically does some damage off the bat. It's okay damage for the cost. Then she chooses a basic tile, which becomes a 2-turn fortified repeater. So that's good right there. Fortified repeater. Those are good words to go together. That destroys 1 enemy AP in the chosen tile's color. So in other words, oops. Okay, I kind of forgot about putting on Do Not Disturb mode. Sorry about that. Boop. There we go. So, anyways. Yeah. So 1 enemy AP in the chosen tile's color. So every 2 turns, you're getting 1 AP in the color you chose. So let's say you chose blue. So 1 AP in blue will be destroyed from the enemy every 2 turns. That's not a lot. It's just 1 every 2 turns, right? But you can have as many of these out as you want. So keep that in mind. Also, look at that passive. Once per turn, when a friendly countdown or repeater tile count reaches 0, destroy 1 enemy AP in the enemy's strongest color. So when this thing hits 0, it's not only going to destroy 1 AP in the chosen tile's color, but also 1 AP in the enemy's strongest color, just because of that passive alone. So it's not that bad, really, especially when you think of how these things can rack up. Move forward here to Burn Notice. For 6 blue, which is pretty cheap, create 2 big ol' attack tiles. They're pretty nice. And a 2-turn fortified blue repeater, which is, again, fortified repeater. Very nice. That removes 1 enemy strike, attack, or protect, and creates another attack tile. Again, a 2-turn fortified repeater that does this little extra bit of help. Not to mention a pretty beefy attack tile. Remember, when it hits 0, another AP is going away due to that purple passive. And then brand loyalty, let's pump it up to 5 so you can see its full effect here. For 5 yellow, which is the cheapest of her abilities, get a 2-turn fortified countdown, not a repeater this time, just a fortified countdown that reduces another friendly repeater or countdown to 0, so speeding up her other tiles. Now, so remember, when something hits 0, what does her purple do? Remove or destroy an enemy AP. Pretty nice in that regard. This itself is a 2-turn countdown, so this would trigger that passive, so an enemy AP would be gone, plus the effect itself from this one, from the other one that it speeds down to 0. It's crazy, it's convoluted, but it works. Anyways, passive states up to 3 times per turn. When a friendly countdown or repeater hits 0, her team gains a burst of health. And it's an okay burst, honestly, especially when you look at how many countdowns and repeaters she can put out, and then, you know, add in your teammates. There's a good amount of healing and AP destruction you can get based on her alone. So, in conclusion, she needs AP to work, okay? Her yellow needs AP, her blue needs AP, her purple needs AP. Nothing just gives you something for free, because she needs to actually put out the countdown or repeaters to make use of her passives. So nothing is really given with her. However, she is really good with other characters. We all know Apocalypse makes 4 repeaters, and there's many other characters like Hawkeye or Iceman that'll make consistent repeaters or countdown tiles. There's plenty of ways to team her up with people. But that's just it. She kind of needs other people to shine, and she needs AP to go anywhere. She's doing nothing at 0, and unfortunately, not just 2022, but even back in 2021, there's like a lot of characters, a lot of builds that just go and do things without even needing any AP. Those passives that just have pure effect without pushing any other buttons. And the fact that she needs AP to get started, she needs friends to really bank off of, and all her stuff is just healing or AP destruction, she doesn't really have a lot of raw damage going in. So she's kind of a low tier character. This isn't to say you can't do anything fun with her. I'm sure you can. There's plenty to do with her, to be quite fair. But just as it is, this single package that she has, nah, that's low tier. Moving on, we have Arcade. Now, I have my thoughts initially right off the bat here for him. I'm sorry. I'm distracted. I feel like my cat's messing with something right now. I'll have to investigate that later. Anyways, Arcade is one of the best trap tile users in the game, bar none. But does that make him a really good character? We'll see. Before I give you my rating, let's read into some of this. Top of the list here is easily Murder World. For 7 purple, you choose a color and you get a control room trap tile in that color. Now you can only have one of these out on the board at a time, okay? For each other Murder World trap tile on the board, you deal damage to a random enemy, and that's upon casting this, okay? So don't get it twisted. It's not like the traps do this, it's just when you cast this. If it matches the control room's color, you deal double damage and destroy a random adjacent tile. So you get maybe a potential board shake cascade out of it, but that's, you know, it's kind of more luck at that point. For every 2 traps on the board, it doesn't say it, but it should, destroy a surrounding random tile. So there's more potential destruction just based on that alone. The passive is where it's at really with this though. At the start of the battle, you create a purple control room trap tile, so he gets one automatically to start, and then each turn after. So in other words, it happens right away after the control room tile, and then every turn after that, you get 2 Murder World trap tiles up to 10 max. Without a control room trap tile, the Murder World trap tiles deal 50% less damage. So the trap tiles, he's generating them all the time, and right off the rip, you're getting 3 traps. One of them is the control room, which does nothing, but it does allow the traps to be at full strength. If the control room goes away, the traps are at half strength. thing is, you still have the traps. So even if the control room gets taken away and you need 7 purple to put a new one down, you still get up to 10 traps out there, and he's passively creating 2 per turn. You can't say that about many other characters in the game. They usually create only 1 to 2 traps if they create any at all passively, and the ones that create them infinitely don't really have a nice damage spike like Arcade's does. So you gotta give him that. He's passively creating traps that are going to do okay damage going forward. Of course, they are traps, so they are overwritable, destroyable, etc., etc. Moving on from there is insert coin, which is honestly very it's overlooked quite often. For 7 blue, which is not that expensive to be quite fair, you choose a pair of colors, and we'll flip over here just so you can see. So I think it's like red and yellow. What was it? Green and what was it? Blue and green? Yeah, there it says it in there, and then black and purple. It took a moment for me to realize it was there in the text. Anyways, you deal damage to the target for each Murder World trap tile in those colors, and then you add an additional effect for those colors chosen, removing the trap tiles in those colors, of course. For Flame Burst, it's for the red and yellow. You create a 1-turn fortified red repeater tile that deals damage times the number of red and yellow trap tiles removed. This can get really, really beefy strong. Flame Burst is easily my favorite of Arcade's traps. It's really easily effective. You're gonna get, the odds are with you that you're gonna have a red or a yellow right off the bat. I mean, that's 2 of the 6 colors out there. Not to mention, after a couple turns pass, you probably got more than just 1 red or yellow out there. This damage can get really nice. Muddy Mire creates a 2-turn fortified countdown. Once again, fortified stuff's nice. That locks a surrounding number of tiles, prioritizing the enemy ones, equal to the number of blue and green trap tiles removed. Locked tiles will destroy enemy AP in their colors each turn. So in other words, more locked tiles out there mean more AP destruction every turn they exist for the rest of the fight, or until the locked tiles are removed. It's good stuff. It's easily overlooked. Is Muddy Mire my #1 choice? No, but it's pretty good control. And finally, there's Poison Cloud. A 2-turn fortified countdown, once again, that deals a good amount of damage, times the number of black and purple Murder World trap tiles removed to the enemy team. The team, that's team damage. And it does that multiplied by the number of black and purple trap tiles out there. Super good ability. This is just a countdown, though. It's not a repeater. There's a difference between, you might think this is the better one to use. Sure, it's a nice 1 hit of burst damage to the team, but remember that Flame Burst is a repeater. It's going to go off all the time, and Arcade is constantly putting out trap tiles. So there's constant fuel for his Flame Burst. But anyways, this Poison Cloud thing here, if it's destroyed, it also deals damage to the enemy team and stuns them for 2 turns from breathing in the fumes. So it's basically like, yeah, sure, let it go off. It's going to do a bunch of damage to you. But if you destroy it, your whole team is stunned for 2 turns, and I get to have my way with you. It's a good ability. It's like I said, it's often overlooked, and I don't understand why. And finally, there's Happy Birthday. 7 black, again, pretty decently priced. Choose a tile, get a 1-turn fortified repeater. Again, fortified. This guy knows where it's at. On the board, which does damage and creates 2 Murder World trap tiles each time it activates. It's a 1-turn repeater, and it does all that every turn it activates. It's a good ability. If there is a Doombot repeater tile on the board at the start of the turn, if there are at least 8 trap tiles on the board, or Murder World trap tiles that is, the Doom Dot destroys one of them, deals damage to the enemy team, and a little bit of damage to Arcade's allies. Not so cool on that point, but still, it's extra damage on top of its repeater damage that goes off every turn. Ridiculous. I'm sorry, what was that? Hey, John. Thought I saw someone come on in here. What's up, man? In the end, Arcade is honestly a really good character who is underappreciated in this game. This isn't me telling you because of my own use for him. I don't use him all that often, but there is some uses for him. For instance, Arcade, keep in mind, he makes trap tiles all the time, right? Guess what Mighty Thor, which we'll talk about later, doesn't target? Trap tiles. She can't. She targets strikes, protects, attacks, countdowns, repeaters, invisibles. No, wait. I think that's it. Yeah, that was it. Anyways, she targets a lot of tiles. Don't get me wrong, that's good stuff. But doesn't target traps. Those traps will stick there. And unfortunately for her, if she causes enough cascades where the traps actually destroy each other, she's hurting herself. Arcade can get around a lot of stuff, and especially if you're going to go ahead and mix him with, say, Mr. Sinister or someone else who plays well with traps. There's a good amount of fun to be had there. Is it invincible? No. Is it high meta? No. I'd say it's probably just a mid-tier, because at the end of the day, you have to remember, they are traps. They can be overwritten, they can be destroyed, they're not 100% reliable. But let's be fair, this guy's creating them passively every turn, and they do damage no matter who matches them. So don't overlook Arcade. Just because he says traps all throughout his powers, don't underestimate him. He's definitely at least mid-tier. I've seen him do some crazy wild things with just a little bit of patience and ingenuity. Graphics are a little blurry this stream. I wonder if that's because of my new phone, John. I got a new phone, and I think it's still loading all the graphics. But I mean, it could be connection. I have no clue. But thank you for letting me know. Next up is Chasm. Oh boy, he just got a giant nerf, like a big time nerf. And so unfortunately, I kind of have to talk about him how he currently is. Chasm was definitely high tier, like really stupidly high tier before, like kind of like how Polaris is in 4-star land, Chasm was that in 5-star land. But let's talk about him currently, shall we? Now, for what it's worth, there's a lot to these 3 abilities. Try to stay with me on this. And all the abilities are pretty much something similar to how they used to be. It's not like they took away a lot from him. It's just they reduced a lot of numbers. A lot of his options, shall we say. First off, we'll have Walking Abyss. Let's put it to level 5 so everyone sees what it's like. So when Chasm makes a match, he can create 2 random Abyss tiles. Yes, Abyss tiles are exclusive only to him right now. And when an Abyss tile is matched or destroyed, and this means by anyone, he creates 1 random web tile. Abyss tiles do not award any AP when matched. So if there's like a match 3 and one of them is an Abyss tile, that's only going to give you 2 AP, not 3. So you can imagine how frustrating that is if you have to match like 2 or more Abyss tiles. You're barely making any AP on that match. At the end of each turn, if there are 2 or more Abyss tiles on the board, both teams lose 1 AP in a random color with 1 or more AP. Okay? So both teams are going to lose AP in a random color with 1 or more AP. So in other words, you can't be reducing AP in something you have 0 in. Make sense? Then both teams' front characters will take damage equal to 115% of Chasm's current match damage in that color. So it's just passive damage going to take place. And it happens to, both teams' front characters. So it's not like it's completely free, but still, free damage is free damage, right? If there are 4 or more Abyss tiles on the board, this triggers twice. Kind of ridiculous. But, it is what it is. It's passive damage. It's AP destruction. It is happening to you as well, but there's a reason for that. We're going to get to Stare in the Void now. Yay! The math needed for one of his matches is beyond nuts. Yeah, it kind of is, John. So, for Standard of the Void, at the start of the match, and this is easily one of the best reasons to use him in PvE or against certain PvP matches, but here we go. At the start of the match, and whenever Chasm revives, because he can do that, we'll get there, you stun the enemy team for 1 turn. So what that means is, think of those annoying mindless ones that Doctor Strange likes to fight in this game that put out a strike, attack, or projectile right off the bat. Yeah, you're stunning all of them before the fight even starts. Hence, they don't get to put their tiles out. Also really good for people like against Beta Ray Bill or against 4-Star Rocket, because they're not going to get to put out their protects or their their strike tiles because they're stunned. They don't get their starting passive. Anyways, if Chasm is downed and there are 3 or more Abyss tiles on the board, he is revived with 30% of your health, and then he destroys all the Abyss tiles. Each time Chasm revives, the Abyss tile threshold goes up by 2. In other words, he needs 5 the second time he's going to revive, then 7 the next time he's going to revive, then 9. It gets kind of hard after a while. Whenever a web tile is matched, Chasm heals a lot of health. Would you believe he used to heal more? Anyways, well, no wait, he didn't heal more. I'm sorry. Rework that in my head. I'm sorry. I was going to say that wrong. He used to not have a threshold going up. I'm sorry. Wrong numbers were jumbled around in my head. Had a long weekend. Anyways, he used to always just need 3 Abyss tiles at this level, but they added the threshold thing in recently, and that was part of his nerf. So the amount of healing is still really good, and it's not to be laughed at too heartily. Web tiles and him go hand in hand. Excuse me. Finally, there's Empty Inside, another passive. So yes, if you were paying attention, that's 3 passive abilities. He's much like America Chavez in the fact that he has nothing active to fire. Everything is passive, and it's all good. Empty Inside states that his match damage is scaled based on the average AP in the battle. The lower the average AP, the stronger Chasm gets. This doesn't count team-ups. Your match damage is, or I should say Chasm's match damage is the strongest at 220% of base when the average is 0, and weakest at 75% of the base when the average AP is 5 or more. So averaging, meaning that, let's say you have 10 AP in red, but like 0 in blue. Well, if you're gonna go average, right between them, you're about 5. That's about the average right there. But you have to add up for all of your AP. Okay, so this is the 6 colors. You add up your 6 numbers, divided by 6, you got your average. For every 2 web tiles on the board, the average AP at which Chasm is weakest is increased by 1. So in other words, the more web tiles you have out there, the more it helps his threshold for more base damage. Again, it's a lot. He has a lot of math going on in his abilities. At the end of the day, let's just think of it this way. He wants more web tiles on the board. He makes web tiles by matching his Abyss tiles. And by keeping web tiles on the board, this also makes it so he can heal, because when web tiles are matched by anyone, he gets some healing back. You also want to keep Abyss tiles on the board, meaning him making matches, because he needs 3 or more Abyss tiles out there to actually revive. So he's really good at tanking, good at healing, good at coming back to life, good at having more than normal match damage, good at there's a lot of good going on here. He could still deplete the enemy AP, albeit slowly. He still has passive damage going out every turn. There's a lot to look at here, a lot to like. I'm sorry, John, you said you never use him with other web guys? Allow me to help you reconsider. When you take Chasm and you mix him with the likes of Miles Morales, you're now creating more AP whenever you match web tiles. And of course, he's slowly depleting it, right? You feel like you're fighting an uphill battle. Allow me to help you a little more. Add in the new Gwenum, 5-star Spider Gwen. She has a thing that says that when you have so much AP, her ability damage is doubled. Well, with Miles helping you create AP, hand over fist, and helping you make web tiles. Oh wait, Gwenum helps you make web tiles too. Did I forget to mention that? All of a sudden you have Chasm being the tank, Gwenum firing off double damage abilities because your AP will rocket up there, and Miles is just sitting there invisibly, because that's what Miles does, helping to keep webs out there and producing AP for everyone. There's definite reason to use him with web makers, but most people like to use him as a zombie, aka someone who comes back to life all the time, that stare into the void power. Mix them with She-Hulk or Immortal Hulk or all of the above, and all of a sudden you have a character who will just keep popping up just like She-Hulk does, just like Immortal Hulk does, and it becomes really annoying to fight. He's a lot easier to fight now with his threshold limitations. He's not invincible, but don't believe the hype, or should I say the negative hype. He's still super good. I'd still rank him high tier. You could still put him against plenty of PvP teams, and no matter how much damage you throw at him, it's very easy for him to come back at least a couple of times before he peters out. Don't ever think that you've got an easy match when Chasm's on the line. And don't make the mistake of bringing your own Chasm to a Chasm fight, because every time your Chasm is making matches, you're feeding his Chasm abysses or web tiles or etc, etc, etc. You're basically just helping each other, and it's kind of ridiculous. What's that, John? You use him to end DD stages to beat the Welcome to Shield stages. Yeah, there's a lot of good uses for him, and I wouldn't put it past anyone to have at least a couple ideas of how to use Chasm best, outside of just an all zombie team. There's plenty of other ways to use him and abuse him, but I just gave you a couple of my top ideas that I like to use with him. Let's move forward from there, shall we? We had a low tier, a mid tier, a high tier, so it's a nice little variety. We have Crystal up next. What's that? Teammates either don't matter or are given to you. I mean, yeah. It really just depends on how what mode we're talking about or what you're going for. But yeah. So Crystal comes into the MPQ finally after so long of being just one of Lockjaw's summons. Poor Crystal. She's a really fun character, and part of a team that I use to go against Chasm teams quite often. I'm not even joking there. Crystal is a key part of my anti-Chasm fighting, but that was before he got nerfed. Maybe I would have to think about toning that down. Anyways, let's start off with her red. Her red says, "Some say the world." It's 7 red right there. She does some damage and then creates a strike, protect, and attack tile with a pretty decent strength. But as a passive, oh, let me pump this up. I apologize. There we go. As a passive, her base match damage is increased by an okay amount for each type of friendly special tile on board. This is for strikes, protects, attacks, countdowns, repeaters, and invisibility. The same 6 type of tiles that Mighty Thor likes to target. I know I've mentioned her a lot. Can't wait to go over that with you. Anyways, that's not worth it. Can I just be real blunt? The fact that your base match type is increased by a decent amount, but only for each type of tile, well, if you have all 6 of them out, that means you have a good, 1,500? And that's just in this boosted form, mind you. 1,500 match damage across all the colors. Shang-Chi is laughing somewhere right now. He gets that much based on just like 1 or 2 hits of his combo. No one's really using Crystal for their base match damage boost. Is it nice? Sure. It's definitely usable. But, again, if you look at Crystal's kit, and we're going to, you'll see that you're not really using her for her tank abilities. That's not really the reason to put her out there. Next up, we have Elemental Affinity. 6 green, chooses an element, deals damage to the enemy team, and that's for a cheap price, mind you, And then the power has a passive effect, which changes based on the chosen element. It does default to fire when you start, so don't worry, you do have a power without casting this. You start with the fire version of it, which will go right here. The fire effect says whenever you make a red match, you deal a bunch of extra permanent damage. So remember, you're casting 6 green, you're doing that much damage to the enemy team, and then you get this passive. When you make a red match, you deal a bunch of permanent damage. That's just on top of whatever you're doing. If you choose Earth, whenever you make a green match, you improve a random friendly strike or protect or attack tile by a okay amount. It's only 90%. And that sounds weird me saying not only, right? But let's say your tile does like 100. You know, it's 100 point protect. Well, now it's only going up to 190. If it does 1,000, it's going up by another 900, which that's pretty nice. But still, this only happens every time you make a green match. How many green matches are on the board? And, you know, you get my point yet? Anyways, air. Whenever you make a yellow match, you create 3 random charge tiles. That's not so bad, because charge tiles are not that common, generally speaking, depending on who we're talking about. So 3 random charge tiles will be made just because you make a yellow match. It's not bad. It's probably not the best one, but hey, depends on your situation you're going for. And then finally there's water. Whenever you make a blue match, you restore a good amount of health. If I had to tell you which ones to use, just as a blanket notice, fire is an easy shoe-in. It's permanent passive damage for matching reds. The blue one is definitely second place, restoring a good amount of health just because you matched a blue. This lends to her the fact that she tanks. Because she does get extra match damage, making it blue keeps her healthy while she sits up in front and does extra damage. Anyways, moving on from there, the Inhuman Ambassador. Nice 0 damage, 0 passive here. I want to note that this ability is the entire reason that she's part of my Chasm kill squad. Whenever the enemy makes any matches, if they have more AP than you in that color, and it's not unheard of. I mean, we've seen the enemies go off crazy with their cascades, haven't we? Grant a burst of health to the team. And that's an okay burst of health. It's not the best health burst ever, but I mean, it's passive, and whenever the enemy makes a match, not a match 4, not a match 5, not making a special tile, just whenever they make a match. You know who this is good against? People that take more than one match. Like Bruce Banner when he's going to go and transform or something, or 5-star Carnage, or you get the point, right? Really good against that. But it's still good against every other team too, because everyone's got to make a match every turn, don't they? And there's a easy chance that they could have more AP than you in a single color. Anyways, Inhuman allies get an extra burst of health on top of that. Also, whenever the enemy makes a match 4 or greater, not just any old match, right? Then you also get AP in that color. So, rewind. Chance at healing your team, and an extra little bit of chance of getting extra AP because they made a match 4. And the fact that her abilities only cost 7 for red and 6 for green, it's not bad. She has healing, she has extra base damage because of her red, she has potential permanent passive damage on her green, or passive healing with blue tiles on her green. She's a really nice package all put together. I usually use her as a support character for these purposes. You could probably do a little more with her if you really wanted to, but just put her behind some tanks, let her heal people, let her create extra AP. You could really use her to support a team going in. By the way, my anti-chasm team is her, Scarlet Witch, and Silver Surfer. If you need to know the recipe and to why that works, I'm more than happy to talk to it in the comments. Tangent, who do you use against 5-star Carnage in a challenge node? Against 5-star Carnage and challenge nodes? Okay, if we're not going with some sort of stun, no, I'm just going to go say it. A stun squad. Someone that could easily stun. You need to stun him usually pretty often to hold him down and beat him to death before he gets rolling. So like 5-star Iceman is a great one, along with Mighty Thor, so you can constantly destroy your own blue tiles. I like to use certain challenge node teams. I'm going into my save teams to show you, but you can always king them away, as I like to call it, or a challenge node killer of Okoye, Gore, and Deathlock definitely work. It's rough because you can't let Carnage get too many matches because then it gets out of control, but still, you can put them down pretty quick with that team. Winfinite team can work. And of course, the top challenge node team. This one hasn't failed me on that, really. It's very careful to play, but Hawkeye, 4-star Gamora, 4-star Coulson, they can get the job done against 5-star Carnage teams, because it only takes 1 to 2 turns to start doing infinite stuns, and as long as you control that infinite stun, there's no way they're breaking out of it. Anyways, yeah, the away team, so nice. Okay, let's move on from. Oh yeah, I didn't give you a rating. I'd say Crystal is like a nice mid-tier character. She's very reliable in the fact that she's going to provide healing. She's going to provide extra AP or potential passive match damage. She's going to have cheap abilities that you can abuse. She's not helpless by herself, and she's definitely helps the team. She's not relying on someone else to do anything for her, and that right there is something really big to look at. So I'd say she's a nice solid mid-tier. She sits there next to Arcade. The only reason they're sharing the same tier is the fact that, you know, Arcade can supply his own traps, his own damage. It might be a little flimsy because they are trap tiles, but he does it consistently and constantly. Crystal does a lot of stuff consistently and constantly, but just not as much potential damage output as Arcade. So they're kind of on even tier. I think sorry for hat drinking, no problem. Tried Mark's team, attacks get in the way. Yeah, they do. That's the one problem with the Mark team, or the let's say it out loud. Polaris, Mr. Negative, 5-star Marvel team, is that any attacks that aren't strike tiles, any tiles that aren't strike tiles get in the way of the fun infinite thing. So unfortunately, it's Carnage. It doesn't work that well. I still say kinging them away is a really good way to go. Never be ashamed of whales, but I think you could do fine with certain other teams. Again, I have good fun with the challenge node killer, as I call it, Okoye, Gore, and Deathlock. Very easy to use. As long as you concentrate on Carnage on the first go, you could have none within a couple of turns. Let's see. Moving on from Crystal, Elektra. Well, the one with the Daredevil emblem on the chest, which is really weird, but you know, I mean, I know it's a comic book accurate thing. Let's move forward. Elektra has a really fun set of abilities. First off, being Audible Sigh. Her 9 red lets you stun a target for 2 turns. You know who else does a 9 red stun for 2 turns? Isn't Things red like close to that cost? I think it's like 10 and does a 2-turn stun. It's kind of funny how close they are in that. Anyways, but hers creates a 2-turn red countdown that deals a ton of damage. So Things does a good amount of damage too, but he's just a 4-star. This 5-star packs a little more of a punch. Unfortunately, it's tied to a countdown. But hey, at least the stun comes first, so that's something. Moving on to the yellow, which is probably the main reason most people like to use her, if they do. Shadow Dance. For 6 yellow, 3 random basic yellow tiles get turned into traps. When Elektra or her allies, this is a big deal, a difference from her 4-star version, because her allies get included here. When they would take damage and there is a trap tile on the board, the damage is reduced by half, and a trap tile is destroyed, generating AP. So you get the 1 yellow AP for this, and dealing a decent amount of damage. Since you're generating that yellow AP, you're just 1 closer to casting this cheap 6 Shadow Dance again. kind of crazy. It's pretty easy to fuel it. Once you get it going once, you can keep Shadow Dance going without much hassle throughout the rest of the fight. It's hard to really ignore that when that gets rolling. Finally, there's the Queen of Strategy. I don't see this coming to effect as often as it should. I feel like it's underrated, but it's also underused. And, well, here, let's read it. So you choose the type of enemy tile that she's targeting, attacks, strikes, or protects. You steal 3 tiles of that type and increase their strength by a good amount. And then Queen of Strategy then now targets that type of tile until you use it again. It defaults to strikes when you first start the fight. As a passive, when an enemy creates tiles of those types, she steals one of those tiles and reduces the strength of the remaining chosen types by an okay amount. This gets really annoying when done right. You're constantly taking what the enemy's creating, making it your own, and then reducing the strength of their other stuff. This could be really, really troublesome against a lot of different teams. Beta Ray Bill and you target protects, ugh, you're kind of neutering them. It's kind of ridiculous. But, you know, again, a lot of people don't use this. People kind of overlook this all the time. I think the reason being is that most things she does is reactionary. Queen of Strategy reacts to tiles being created, and if the enemy's not doing that, well, then why are you using this ability? Shadow Dance only reacts to enemy damage. It doesn't outright punish unless enemy damage is coming on in. So, and you're only reducing damage by half. You're not nullifying it all, so you're not 100% safe. Of course, don't forget that your protect tiles will protect more after the 50% knockdown, you know? So, yeah, that is a thing. Anyways, the only instant gratification ability is Audible Sigh with its 2-turn stun, but even then, you gotta wait for a 2-turn red countdown to go off to get your damage out of it. And this is why Electra gets relegated to like I'd say she's like a high-low tier, okay? So she's not as bad as Abigail Brand, but that's only because she has a nice stun. Shadow Dance can help keep people safe. Queen of Strategy does merit some use sometimes, but just not in every situation, and hence that's why it's not that great. Yeah, she's definitely like high-low tier. And even then, I could see plenty of situations where Abigail Brand might be more fun than Electra. But hey, we're just going off of the average odds of them being useful in a fight and actually pulling through. Moving on from Electra, we have Emma Frost, one of the Phoenix 5 members, and man, she's pretty darn cool. I can use her in many different situations and be happy with the outcome. I'm not saying she's chasm awesome, but hey, let's take a look at her and we'll give you some more details. First off, the easiest thing to start off with Psychic Flames. For 8 red, you destroy 8, say it again, 8 selected basic tiles. 8, 8, 8. That's a lot. That's a whole row or whole column. That's, what? 3 more tiles than what Bullseye gives you on his best day. That's a lot of tiles. Shang-Chi doesn't do 8. Anyways, 8 selected basic tiles, dealing a decent amount of damage to the enemy team, and then completely draining your red AP. So in other words, you only get to cast this once in a bit, you know, because even if you have like 16 of this, you're only casting this once, and then you gotta build up your AP again. Saved your bacon in the last puzzle quest? Yeah, I could see that, John. It also does extra damage when you cast it per AP drain. So if you do have more red than just the 8 sitting around, and when she drains it all, you're going to do more damage. Kind of like 4-star Hulkbuster. Anyways, these destroyed tiles do not generate AP or deal additional damage, but hey, you know those cascades are going to do some work. Come on. Anyways, as a passive, she increases her teammates' ability damage by 70%, plus 2% per red AP. Extra Phoenix Force allies also get 15% more damage, so they get like 85% to start, plus 2% per red AP. That's not a ton of extra increase. However, it is enough. So an extra 10 red AP you have means 20% more damage increase. This goes for everybody's powers. You're talking passives, right? So what if Crystal's on your team and you smack someone with a red passive? Yep, that's boosted. What if Arcade's trap trips? That's boosted. Immortal Hulk? Yep, that green door is boosted. This is very much like Okoye, except for, well, Emma Frost doesn't have to tank to keep her AP in check. So it's not as good of a boost as like Okoye is, but it's not to be overlooked. The fact that it's very easy to maintain and keep in check is something very much worth looking at. Then we're going to skip down to purple before we go to her blue, okay? Mental Block. For 9 purple, she destroys up to 3 random and enemy special tiles. Well, random enemy special tiles, I'm sorry. I don't know why I said and. Anyways, prioritizes repeaters and countdowns first. That's always nice. Good for fighting goons. Anyways, and then creates a 3-turn fortified countdown tile. I love fortified countdowns. A lot more reliable. That reduces all active opponents' ability levels by 3 levels. The whole enemy team. You cast this 1 mental block, and then the entire enemy team gets 3 levels reduced on all their stuff. You're basically neutering the entire enemy team. That's really, it's again underappreciated. This could really turn the tide for a lot of abilities. Because not only are abilities now not hitting for as much damage, but they're not healing as much, or they're not as reliable. Maybe their thresholds aren't as good as they normally are for triggering. Countdowns and repeaters take longer to go off. There's plenty here that gets overlooked. So it's unfortunate it's all this does, but then again, it's reliable and it's useful. It's not going to kill someone, but you're pretty much fighting babies at that point. Hey Dark, how's it going, man? Finally, there's my own best friend, 5 blue. It basically shuts down her own powers, which you might think is kind of bad. But then she gets a 3-turn fortified diamond countdown tile, and shifts into diamond form if she isn't already. What that means is when she's in diamond form, her match damage is increased by, well, let's pump it up here. There you go, 50%. Match damage increased by 50%, and then she takes 100% reduced match damage to a minimum of 1, and she cannot be stunned. So while that's out there, that 3-turn fortified countdown, she takes so much less damage. She does more match damage. She cannot be stunned. She is a wrecking ball at that point. Not to say that she's going to just go out there and slug everyone to death, but the fact that she can't be downed, well, so to speak. I mean, she can be downed, but come on, it's a lot harder now. Anyways, when that countdown tile runs out or is destroyed, she reverts to human form. But don't forget, when all her teammates are gone, or down, I should say, this kicks in immediately. She goes into this whole diamond form when both her teammates go down. So don't save her for last if you're going against her, because then you'll regret that. In the end, I'd say she's pretty darn reliable. Psychic Flames is boosting your own power damage, not to mention your teammates' power damage. Mental Block will make the enemies suffer under just being inadequate. And then my own best friend is a nice fallout, like in case the proverbial stuff hits the fan. She's got a nice fallback plan for that. She could also just cast it early and just turn in that nice diamond form in case you could see that there's incoming trouble. For such a nice package, you'd think I'd rate her as a high tier, but no. I'd say she's just like a high mid tier. Why she's not so high is the fact that she still needs some sort of AP feed to do anything. Nothing in these passives does anything without some sort of AP expenditure. A lot of characters at this tier, at this level, in this year of 2022, don't need AP to do anything. So Emma needs help to get started. It's just AP, right? But still, she needs things to get started. My own best friend has a nice passive, but it doesn't even kick in until her teammates are downed. So let's be fair. As cool as she is, she still needs just a little help. Needs a couple of turns of AP generation before she can start going crazy on people. So I'll keep her to like a high mid tier. You missed the 5-star recap? Not all of it, man. We just got done with Emma. Let's move on to Shumagorath. I mean Gargantos. And let's go over what Mr. Mike Wazowski has in store for us. So, this dude here, which kind of, he seems like he's the original Cyclops, doesn't he? Come on. Tentacle Thrash here for his green is pretty nice. One of the main reasons to use him, I would think. But there's probably more than one. Get a 1-turn countdown at the start of the turn that destroys one enemy AP in its color and recreates itself on an adjacent tile. But if the enemy has no AP in that color, so let's just say they're flat broke, they got lint in their pocket, you get a bunch of permanent damage to that opponent instead. It's kind of like Kingpin when he does his forced hand thing, and I'm going to give you this tile, but then I'm going to do a bunch of damage to you if you don't have enough AP for me. It's like that. Only Gargantos doing it every turn. By the way, if you're thinking about how this would work teamed up with Chasm, constantly depleting AP as it goes, yes, it does work pretty cool. Anyways, if Gargantos is invisible at the start of the turn, you create basically 2 Tentacle Thrash tiles. It says up to 3 max. It doesn't happen as often as you'd want it to. The only reason that's there is because you can get stunned, or other things could happen, like maybe you could lock the tiles so they stay there. But you can still only get up to 3 of them out there even with locks in place. Yes, he'll always be Shumari. Yeah, we're still early in the alphabet. We are, John. Tentacle Teeth is probably his least useful ability, but hey, let's pump up to 5 to see what it's really like. 8 black. Reduce the strength of 2 enemy tiles by a decent amount, to be quite fair. Plus extra for every Tentacle Thrash on the board. Then for each of those strike, protects, and attacks below a certain strength, destroy them and deal a ton of permanent damage. It is strong when you get it to work. Nothing wrong there. But if there is no enemy strike, protects, or attacks out there, it literally does nothing. It'll even give you a warning saying there's nothing to do with this. You can't cast it. So his black power does nothing without enemy strikes, protects, or attacks out there. And we just talked about what? I don't know, Shang-Chi, who doesn't use those at all, or a bunch of other characters during this year already we mentioned that don't use them at all, like, I don't know, Chasm. So it's not the most useful ability, but it can be against the right people. And finally, there's Ineffable Horror. This is a really strong ability. Definitely a turn the tide, shall we say. For 9 blue, so it's maybe a little pricey. You drain the entire blue AP, kind of like how Emma does with red. Anyways, and you deal a good amount of damage per AP drained. And then he goes invisible for 3 turns. And while he's invisible, his matches are permanent damage. And don't forget, he's doing extra Tentacle Thrashes because he's invisible. By the way, that passive works for any reason he's invisible. He doesn't have to go invisible just based on this blue ability. If Agent Venom casts his yellow and makes Gargantos invisible, yep, Gargantos is going to do permanent damage with his matches, and he's going to make extra Tentacle Thrashes. He's a good character. Honestly, Gargantos, I wouldn't say he's underrated. I just don't see him as often as you think you would, because Tentacle Thrash is a good passive. It's constantly threatening people's AP. It happens to work all the time, and at the early in the match, you're almost guaranteed to get some good damage out there because the fact that everyone's got zeros to start, right? Ineffable Horror needs some sort of blue generator to really get it in there. I really encourage you, if you haven't figured it out already, to team him with 5-star Hawkeye, because remember, countdowns create 3 blue AP when 5-star Hawkeye is your ally. Anyways, that gets your ineffable horror rolling really early for a ton of damage by what, like turn 4 or 5? Oof, crazy amount of damage. Anyways, and then Tentacle Teeth, it's nice if that option comes into play, but you can't count on it. So, at the end of the day, I don't want to say he's as good as Chasm. That's not fair. Although right now with Chasm's nerf in play, the jury's out. I think he's probably on the same level as, man. I don't know, is he a high mid tier like Emma? Or is he like a low high tier, just like a rung on the ladder below Chasm and friends? That's kind of a tough call. I'd say he's probably equal to Emma. I think Emma's got a good chance against him as well. That whole invisible thing is probably his ace up his sleeve, but Emma's got that constant boosted damage, and then that of course going in diamond form to keep her protected. So I'd say it's a nice wash. So probably just a nice high mid tier. What's that Dark? Hideous Super Nuke. Yeah, used him a lot when he dropped with HE and Coulson for tough challenge notes. Yeah. Garganto's constantly feeding countdowns to countdown loving individuals is always a solid way to go. Next up we have Hitmonkey. I'll be 100% honest. I've heard of Hitmonkey before he was released as an MPQ character, but only heard of, like, I think I've like seen him mentioned on some sort of Facebook Marvel posts or something, and then all of a sudden the character comes into MPQ and I'm like, wow, this is really a character. I wasn't just hearing some sort of fever dream. Got it. Now Hitmonkey over here, he brings in a nice set of skills that honestly was kind of needed at the time. We needed this guy to come in with his monkey business. For 7 red, he does a good amount of damage. Yes, this is a boosted number, but just take it just a little below half. That's still super high for 7 red. Enemies that are downed by this damage, in other words, you have to kill them with this for this to take effect. But hey, if you down them with that, they can't return from being downed through their own abilities. In other words, Chasm can't revive himself, Immortal Hulk stays down forever. You get the point. As a passive, he deals 35% extra damage to villains. This isn't just match damage, that's power damage too. So if you use that as an active ability, that 63,000 you see up there, if you use that as an active against a villain, yes, that's boosted 35% higher. Anyways, and then any damage you deal to villains automatically downs them if they have less than 15% health. That's super awesome. And that means any damage. So like if he does the match damage to a villain and it brings them down below 15%, yes, they are dead. Doesn't matter. It's super good. So if the enemy has 100,000 health and you bring them down to less than 15,000 health with a match, yep, they're dead. Simple as that. That's the math. Fun fact: when I like to play Hitmonkey, I put him with half Thor to feed yellow to 5-star Cyclops. So Cyclops can boost Hitmonkey's match damage with his yellow. I make Hitmonkey my match damage crazy dude, and thus he's just insta-killing villains after a while because of such high match damage. Just my fun little thing I like to play once in a while. What was that, Dark? You legit thought he was an MPQ original, but I don't follow comics anymore, so what do I know? I think the 5-star version is an MPQ original. The 3-star is like comic original. I think the 5-star version, this EDI suit, is an MPQ original. So don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what that is. So monkey suit for 6 purple, you get a 6-turn. 3-turn invisibility countdown tiles. So basically they're just countdown tiles, but they lend him invisibility. All but 1 is a decoy. So 5 of those tiles are decoys. Only 1 is the real deal. Each of them deal an okay amount of damage if matched by the enemy, and if Hitmonkey makes a match, it's kind of like the four-star Deadpool's countdown for what? Anyways, if Hitmonkey makes a match or uses an ability while he's invisible, which is very easy to do, mind you, he deals a bunch of damage to the target and becomes visible. Now remember, if that damage brings a villain below 15% of their health, they're dead per his red. Anyways, otherwise, when the countdown tiles expire, he also deals damage to the enemy team and becomes visible. It's more fun just to deal damage right off the rip and try to bring someone down. I'm just going to say what it is. That passive states, when he becomes visible, convert all his invisibility tiles into basic tiles. Basically, it's just so that way you can't have extra invisibility tiles out there to cast this again and have more of these things out there. Does it make sense? It's just kind of like a passive to get rid of loopholes. That's all that is. Finally, there's Ow Ow That Stings. Pump the 5 here. For 7 black, you get a 4-turn countdown tile, and it becomes I'm Back Baby, which basically does this. If you look between these two, by the way, they do like the same thing. You see the passive down there? It's pretty much like it's almost the same. Here, let's read it from here first. So the passive on Ow Ow That Sting states, he haunts the board at the beginning of the player's turn. They convert the color of a random tile in the enemy's strongest color to red or purple. So you're getting a color swap every turn. Supernatural enemies also deal 25% less damage to Hitmonkey. So people like, oh, I don't know, Scarlet Witch or Doctor Strange, they'll do less damage to Hitmonkey. This passive, so when you get that countdown out there, does this instead, because you don't have the old passive now, so it switches to this one. The opponents deal 15% less damage. This is match, this is power, this is everything, okay? And at the beginning of the enemy's turn, you deal an okay amount of damage to the target, destroy 3 AP in their strongest color, and swap the positions of 4 random pairs of tiles on the board. But once this tile is gone from the board, the ability goes back to Ow Ow That Stings. It's a pretty fun passive. I mean, you get the extra damage mitigation, you get extra damage just right off the bat, like to the target, destroying AP in the strongest color, and a tile swap. It's like an uber version of the main event Hulk. There's a lot of fun that you could do here with this. It only costs 7 black to get it rolling. Not to mention the fact that the passive right there is usually going to help you. It's creating red or purple. You know who likes red or purple tiles? Shang-Chi. Did you ever think Hitmonkey was going to be a good partner for Shang-Chi? No, I don't think anyone did, but hey, he's here. Constantly helping out. Anyways. Hitmonkey is not to be underestimated. There's a lot of good damage potential here and quick ways to damage and down people for good. Monkey Business can down villains really easily and permanently, and even if it's not a villain, you could use it actively against people like, oh, I don't know, 5-star She-Hulk, who we'll talk about soon, or other characters like Abomination, or, you know, people that can revive themselves. Hitmonkey can get rid of them, no matter what, if they're a villain or a hero. That alone is something worth valuing. The fact that he can put out so much damage per turn because of this black helping to make his red and purple, which he obviously uses. The fact that you could use this with people like Shang-Chi to boost their own abilities, so he's a good team player. There's a lot of value here. Again, I find it really hard to put someone at the same level as Chasm, but if someone's going to do it, it might be Hitmonkey, because Hitmonkey could actually kill Chasm. Has a good odds of it, actually. So, I feel weird saying this, but I'd have to rate Hitmonkey high tier. Did I imagine that going into this? No. But at the same time, he's got nothing holding him back. He can create his own AP. He can actually mitigate damage. He can go invisible if he needs to. He can support his teammates. It's kind of crazy to think about it. I use him a good amount, but not as much as I should, to be quite fair. Maybe I'll have to change that. Let's move on from Hitmonkey. What's that? Monkey Slaughter's Goon Team, but does purple work well with people like GG and HE that fortify CDs? What's that? Does purple work more with people like GG and HE that fortify countdowns? That's an interesting point. So wait, is purple is the one that makes him invisible? You get those things out there. So Green Goblin and Hawkeye have fortified CDs. Let me read it again. Give me a second back here. He deals damage to the target, becomes visible. Yeah, it wouldn't change a thing. Because, so, when he makes a match or uses an ability when he's invisible, because he makes the tiles, those tiles make him invisible. But if he makes a match when he's invisible, he deals damage and becomes visible. In the passive states, whenever Hitmonkey becomes visible, he converts all his invisibility tiles to basics. So the passive basically gets around what you're saying. So if Green Goblin is a teammate and fortified all of them, his passive would still get rid of all the invisibility countdowns. So, yes. That's, I'm glad you stated that, because it was good to kind of think that through. I haven't used it myself, but I can't imagine it not working like that unless they just didn't think that through. So, fortifying set is passive ability for his CD. Yeah. I can't imagine that's not what that passive is for. I will probably play with that once or twice just to see it in action, but that's got to be what that passive is all about. Which is weird to think of. It's a passive to actually hold back a character. Anyways. Hitmonkey. Moving on. Hey, Kamala. She came into the game right alongside her series, Ms. Marvel. Which was a fun series to me, but then again, I don't take a lot of these things as seriously as some people do. I liked the Ms. Marvel show. I thought it was funny. But anyways, moving on from that. MPQ Lab. That's true, John. I might have to do that. How do I start with Kamala Khan? All of her abilities lend a certain something to her. I guess we'll start with Cosmic Course. So, for 6 blue, there's a lot of text here. So let's digest it one piece at a time. She goes airborne for a turn and creates a 2-turn repeater that fortifies and converts 3 random friendly special tiles to yellow or green. Okay, so that's a repeater that's going to consistently change those tiles to her other 2 colors. Got it? Also, you get a 6-turn fortified blue countdown tile that powers up her other abilities, which you'll hear about when we get to those. If this tile already exists, she instead improves 2 random friendly strike attack protects by an okay amount. I want to pay attention to this passive here, okay? This is kind of one of the biggest reasons to use her, in my opinion. There are other reasons to use her, and I can't say they're all bad, because they're not, but I love this one. It's really good at going against goons, you know, people that just constantly cast things. Whenever an enemy fires an ability, she generates 4 AP in one of her colors. 4 green, 4 yellow, 4 blue, just random AP generation because the goon fired stuff? Yes, please. That's really super good. I can't sing the praises of that more. I mean, her 6 blue ability is nice. It's got some good effect in there, but that passive alone is worth using. Let's move up to the green in Big and Blast. I almost said Bash. 7 green destroys a random 3x3 block of tiles and does some okay damage to the enemy team. But if there's a study tile out there, you get to select the block to destroy and you deal less damage. It's kind of annoying in that regard. Like, if you look at it from this way, you almost don't want the study tile because you would do more damage and it's to the enemy team. But, you know, it's that random destruction that might ruin something you have out there. Like it could ruin her study tile, for instance. So, you know, kind of have to take a risk once in a while, that sort of thing. Anyways. The passive for her is really fun, though. This is where she teams up really good with Polaris and other people that are like-minded. So whenever she or any ally matches or destroys a friendly special tile, which, yes, this green is meant to do this here, she can deal extra damage. That's a really fun number I got there. To a random enemy. So, yes, if you have a block of protects or strikes or attacks and Polaris is on your team and you destroy them with this green, Kamala Khan is dealing that damage to a random enemy for every tile you're destroying, and Polaris is doing that as well with her passives. And then, okay, yeah, Polaris is going to recreate a bunch of those tiles and multiply them across the board. Super huge, annoying fun. Anyways, moving off that green, I'm a Superhero is probably her least impressive ability, but it's still good. It's kind of pricey at 10 yellow, but she makes 16. Remember, there's only 64 tiles on the board. This is 25% of the board. 16 big old protect tiles, and then clears any stuns on her allies. It's an actual status effect remover. You don't see those often in this game. So if a study tile exists on the board, she also fortifies 6 of those tiles. How awesome is that? A lot of protection, clearing stuns, and then she has potential to fortify some things as well. That's a lot of fun to be had there. Remember, if you fortify a tile and then she destroys it, she's only destroying the fortification, but she still gets her green passive along with it. So, all in all, she's a really fun character. She has a lot of good usage. Just her blue by itself, if she's going into a one-on-one sort of state, she's still going to create blue, green, or yellow AP every time the enemy casts something. Now, of course, that's purposeless against Chasm, but most everyone else is going to cast something, so she's going to gain some AP one way or another. Her green is always going to be useful for her, especially since her yellow's putting out 25% of the board worth of protect tiles. There's a lot you could do here with this. Unfortunately, it requires 10 yellow to get those protects out there. And, you know, what was it, 7 green? Yep, 7 green to get that big old board shake 3x3 block out there. So, unfortunately, I'd only put her at mid-tier because she's only going to be doing damage once special tiles are out on the board, and she doesn't make any special tiles until you get enough AP to feed that. Her AP will be fed by the enemy, but then again, you got to wait for them to cast powers. So I think I'd put her only at mid-tier because her passives aren't really doing anything until the enemy has already done some powers, or if you got some lucky matches up. So I'd put her only at mid-tier. Yeah, Beta Ray Bill and her are good friends. That is so true. Thought she could replace 4-star Thanos and Winfinite, but not so. You're right, she can't because she needs to put that blue out there so she could select a block, and then even then, that block has to have at least like 7 tiles in it to abuse. So it's too much if then and but. Moving on from Kamala Khan, we got Moon Knight, the Avatar of Khonshu. Came out with his show, which honestly was a really cool show. I liked it a lot. But enough about that. Let's talk about the character. I'm just gonna start at the top before I give him a rating. Crescent darts for 10 green. You get a nice, good destruction of a random row, which deals a good amount of damage. I remember that is boosted, but still, even unboosted, that's okay. It's pricey, but keep going here. Creates a 4-turn fortified countdown. Thank God for fortifications, right? That it targets the enemy. While this tile's on the board, whenever that enemy does any amount of damage, that damage is reduced by a good amount and basically reflected. You deal 10,000 S. Well, at least per this, right? This is boosted, but you get that damage reflected back at him. It's really good. Easily a hallmark of his ability sets. If you put crescent darts out on the field, the enemy will take notice. It's super hindering. You think you might have the game won, and if they hit your main tank with crescent darts, all of a sudden you're not dealing a lot of damage anymore, and you're taking a lot. It's amazing how this one green ability can ruin your day. It's happened to me once or twice, and I wasn't looking at it right. I was like, oops, didn't see that coming, and now I'm dead. Awesome. Next up, we have Nightmare. I'm going to pump this up to 5 for 10 black, so another expensive ability. You deal a lot of damage. Even unboosted, it's still a lot of damage to lowest health enemy. And that's the lowest health dude. Like, the dude's probably close to death if we're talking lowest health and you have 10 black up your sleeve, right? If that enemy is downed, which they probably are, you restore a whole ton of health yourself and then create some big ol' strength attack tiles. 4 of them. Just basically helping you to kill and murder more people. Otherwise, if it doesn't kill someone, basically, you create a decent strength protect tile for each active enemy, and then he does a little bit of damage to himself. It's kind of like, I don't know, he gets punished for not finishing the job right then and there. But, I mean, look at what he gets to do. For 10 black, as long as you can guarantee that kill, there's a lot to gain here. It's a good ability, it's a little pricey. What's that? You saw him as a hard counter to all the Jane Riri teams in PvP. You're right. You're not wrong with that at all. I like to also use him teamed up with Thanos, because Thanos can't stun him, which we'll get to that right here. Moon Shadow, 10 purple. Why is everything 10s with him? You get for 10 purple, you get 3 trap tiles that when are matched by the enemy. That's the worst part about this. They can't be destroyed or matched by you or whatever. They have to be matched by the enemy. They deal a good amount of damage, and steal up to 3 enemy attack, protect, or strike tiles, and improve them by a whole lot. Like a lot. Like wow, you took like a paper plate and made it into adamantium shield. Crazy. As a passive, and this is the best reason to use this ability, he can't be stunned, period. And whenever an enemy tries to stun you, you deal a pretty sizable amount of damage back to them and steal 3 AP from a random enemy pool. So like Dark was saying here, yeah, anytime Riri's like, oh, green power, Moon Knight's like, no, I hate you, and smacks her right in the face for even trying to think about it. In case you're wondering, yes, if Thanos is your teammate and Thanos' 5-star Court Death smacks Moon Knight as a teammate, it would stun him normally, but nope, Moon Knight says no it won't, and he still hits the enemy for it. So Thanos tries to stun his teammate, Moon Knight says no, that's not happening, but I'm still going to smack the enemy for the just for being there. So yeah, he's really fun to team with the 5-star Thanos for going through a lot of nodes. Moon Knight unfortunately has this one problem where everything costs 10s. It's going to take you a moment to get rolling, especially when you have like a lot of these 2022 people being like, I'm depleting your AP. Abigail Brand, Chasm, Gargantos. There's 3 off the top of my head that like to deplete your AP. That's super annoying. And you need 10s to cast your stuff. His only real passive being Moon Shadow. It is a great passive, can't fault him on it, but unfortunately, he's not going to do much without the AP to get rolling. So I only put him at like a low mid tier, because it's very possible that you'll go through a whole fight, never have the AP to cast your stuff until it's too late. Now, if you do get to cast the AP in time, you could probably turn the tide with how strong his stuff is. But man, you're probably using a health pack at the end of the day, at least on your teammates, if not yourself. So I'd say he's like a low mid tier. Nice guy, Thanos. Moving on from Moon Knight, we have 5-star She-Hulk. Again, came out with the show. Her show is, I don't know, a lot of people question it, say it's bad. I don't know. I saw the humor in it. It was very meta. Looked in the camera and made its fourth wall breaking jokes. She did that in the comics. What's the point? What's the difference? Anyways, his biggest issue, what was that, Dark? Moon Knight's biggest issue is it needs a battery or lots of cascades get going. Yeah, that's it. And a lot of these characters don't need that. That's the reason why I rate them low. It kind of sucks. 5-star She-Hulk is another zombie character, as I like to call them, where they basically can get knocked down and get back up again, like they're tub thumping. We'll start there, actually. Makes me stronger. So, when she's downed, if she has any non-down allies, on her team's next turn, she's revived with 40% of her max health, and uses her So Below, which is her green ability. Whenever she's revived, she also permanently deals 75% more increased damage, and that's for everything she does, not just match damage, but power damage too. And she takes 25% more, so she gets easier to kill, but she also becomes more threatening. This effect stacks, but she can only be revived 3 times, so she's not infinitely revivable like Chasm or Immortal Hulk or Abomination, or you get the point. Yeah, you know, I can't even say Chasm now, because Chasm could eventually get to the point where you don't have enough Abyss tiles on the board, so that's not infinite either. Anyways, She-Hulk definitely fits in with Chasm and Immortal Hulk because of Makes Me Stronger, though. Makes it a very hard team to kill. Thank you, John. You got the reference. I love it. Let's go to So Below, since we mentioned it. For 8 green, or, you know, cast when she comes back from being dead, she destroys the lowest red and green tiles across up to 5 random columns, and all tiles below them. Tiles destroyed this way deal 90% damage, so not the full 100%, right? But you're dealing a lot of... There's 5 random columns of this, so you're still doing a lot of damage. Anyways, and they don't generate AP. Man, there's a reason I put this at 5. The fact that she's going to do this automatically upon revival, and just whenever I cast 8 green, it's very easy to abuse this. Especially if you're putting her with Immortal Hulk as a teammate. Immortal Hulk doesn't use his green AP. He just accidentally matches it once in a while. Have her use it. And finally, there is As Above. 10 red. You deal a bunch of damage. Not like Moon Knight damage, but we'll get there. And then you send the target airborne for a turn. When the enemy returns from being airborne, as a passive here, they take damage equal to 10% of their max health. This could be really good and honestly be the killing blow for most people. So do the math. If they have 100,000 health as their max, they're taking an extra 10,000 when they land. So that's not bad. I mean, that's on top of what they're already doing here. So just remember that when they're airborne, though, they are immune to everything else at the time for the most part. So, oh, and if you're thinking of teaming her with certain characters like Archangel or whatever, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Archangel's passive says he only pulls people down from airborne and stuns them at the beginning of the turn. If you're casting As Above, this makes them airborne for 1 turn. Now, you don't. Next time the turn starts, they're already falling to the ground. You don't have time for Archangel to use his passive. Unfortunately, the enemies have to resolve their stuff before Archangel gets the chance to do his. It's kind of a shame. I did practice it and try it out a couple times. There's nothing to show for it. I was hoping to have some sort of trick there with that, but there isn't. Nova does have a cheaper airborne. You're right, Dark. It's just, you know, She-Hulk's is a lot stronger. So, you know, you're paying a little more, but getting a ton more effect. So, anywho, if you want to do the whole airborne thing with Archangel, well, that's where Nova comes into play. Or North Star. You're right. At the end of the day, She-Hulk is very simple. just match damage and more cascades and just go ahead and punch her and kill her, watch her come back to life, and thrash your enemy some more. She isn't amazingly invincible. This makes me stronger. It says she only gets revived at the start of the next turn. So if she gets downed and then her ally gets downed right next to her, she's not coming back. Whereas if Chasm gets down and still has allies around right then and there, he comes back. He doesn't wait. So she waits just a little too long. That doesn't make her worse per se. It's just not as good in this regard of reviving. I think She-Hulk can do more damage nowadays since Chasm's nerf, but Chasm's still safer because of his web health healing, because he only needs Abyss Tiles to come back, because of his AP degeneration from the enemy. I think he's got more safety at the end of the day. So I wouldn't say She-Hulk is high tier. I'd say she's one of those high mid tiers. You know, there's a couple of those we have in 2022. They just kind of really close to reaching that upper echelon, but not quite there. But speaking of upper echelon, here's Mighty Thor. Mighty Thor, and you know, I skipped Riri. I have to go back to her in a moment. Let's go back to her as soon as we get done with Mighty Thor, shall we? Because honestly, it'll fit, and you'll see why. Mighty Thor is the bane of many teams' existences, and she came out along with that whole Thor: Love and Thunder movie, which was just a fun little jaunt. Mighty Thor comes on in with this passive that ruins a lot of teams' days, or makes your team, you know, really super stupendous, depending on how you want to look at it. The main reason is because of Dr. Thor. Look at all that text. You drowning in text yet? This one definitely, drowns you in it. 7 blue. 5 random basic tiles turn into charge tiles. That's nice right there, right? That's pretty decent. Nope, that's not all this does. As a passive, at the start of battle, Thor converts 3 random basic tiles into charge tiles. So that just happens right at the start of the fight, right? Also, at the beginning of each of her turns, Thor converts 1 random basic tile into a charge tile. So there's passive charge generation here. And then, on top of that, if Thor has 8 AP or less in any of her strongest colors, which is red, yellow, blue, in case you didn't know this already, at the beginning of her turn, and whenever she uses an ability, Thor destroys 1 random adjacent tile to each charge tile on the board, prioritizing special tiles. Let me just summarize this for you. Let's say there's a bunch of enemy tiles out there. Rocket puts out his 7 strikes, or Beta Ray Bill puts out his 4 protects. Dr. Thor here is going to have at least 3 charge tiles to start the fight, a 4th one upon the next turn, and up to at least that many tiles are getting destroyed passively, prioritizing special tiles, meaning those protects are probably targeted and or gone. Those strikes are diminished. Gore's repeaters are being targeted. Gargantos' countdown is threatened. You get the point yet? This is special tiles, so we're talking strikes, protects, attacks, invisibilities, countdowns, and repeaters. What didn't I mention? I didn't mention Abyss tiles. I didn't mention trap tiles. I didn't mention web tiles. Those ones get away scot-free. So if you want to go against Dr. Thor anytime soon, remember your web teams, remember Abyss tiles from Chasm, and remember your trap users. They get around her, and they make the cascades that she does work against her, because all of a sudden she's going to cascade traps together, and then she's going to hurt herself a lot. Believe me, I've used Arcade and Mr. Sinister to really do some damage to her because she cannot help it. It's kind of fun. What was that, John? Gambit's purple countdowns get murdered by her. This is true. Yeah, when she's on your side, that's right, Dark. It's awesome, but man, it's annoying when she's the enemy. Her red is okay. At 6 red, it's still nice and cheap. She does a pretty decent amount of damage, plus extra damage per charge tile on the board, so it gets nasty. Plus more damage for each charge tile that's been destroyed this battle. Do you see a max there? Because I don't. It gets pretty rough the later in the battle you get. Anyways, she then converts 2 random basic tiles into charge tiles. So she's putting more out there. And remember that Dr. Thor passive goes off every time she uses one of her own abilities. Ugh. Oh, by the way, since we're talking about passively destroying special tiles, everyone does realize that Polaris activates when special tiles are destroyed, right? Just putting the math together. Or maybe Kamala Khan, and her passive green. You're just putting those things together. Anyways, Share the Love for 8 yellow. This is easily her big nuke. It's so good. But it does kind of, if it doesn't finish the job off, it slows down your game for a moment. You destroy all the charge tiles on the board. And for each charge tile destroyed, you deal a ton of damage to a random enemy. Then convert 4 random basic tiles into charge tiles. So there's a lot of damage to be done here because the charge tiles are going to rack up rather quickly. Sure, you could be matching them, and so could the enemy, but it's not going to take long for you to get enough out there to give you enough of an excuse to nuke the enemy with 8 yellow. I can't sing enough praise about this ability. This ability easily finishes teams off. And if it didn't, don't forget, she fired an ability, so her Dr. Thor passive is going to go off. Oh boy. So, yeah, she's super good. This is high tier. This is someone that could actually go toe-to-toe with people like Chasm and other high tier people and easily win the day. Does she have counters? Yes, she does. Can she be beaten? Oh, yeah. She doesn't self-revive. She doesn't have protection. She doesn't have healing. She's not invincible whatsoever. But she'll probably kill you before you kill her if you're trying to do a nice fair toe-to-toe match. Don't go fair toe-to-toe with her. Was that Dark? She gets laughably high damage. She gets revved up. Definitely prioritize her or pay the price. This is true. 100% true. Finally, let's go to Riri, and it's a good thing we saved her for last because she and Mighty Thor over there are they're partners in crime. Riri Williams has a really weird set of powers if you look at her just as a solo thing. And, well, let's do that. For 4 blue, nice and super cheap, right? You create 3 2-turn blue suppression device repeaters. So 3 blue repeaters, right? They're not fortified, unfortunately. These tiles will deal damage and create 1 mighty strength projectile, okay? But you get 4 overcharge points when you do this. What are overcharge points? Well, let's see here. This passive says if she gets 10 overcharge points, she makes a 4-turn countdown, which disables her abilities. So in other words, think of her when she fires off her abilities. It's like she's using a power source on her. She's going to short circuit herself. Okay? Every turn, and when she makes a match 4 or higher, she loses 1 overcharge. It's kind of like, I don't know, like cooling herself off or whatever. Point is, you want to keep her matching and keep those match 4s up to keep this down. But we just mentioned how Mighty Thor targets countdowns and repeaters and stuff passively, right? And gets rid of them. Well, Riri's making a passive short circuit countdown tile when she reaches 10 overcharge points. Huh. It almost is like Mighty Thor is a good partner for her, isn't it? Just passively destroy that countdown and get right back into fighting with Riri because you've disabled that ability. That disabling is gone. Anyways, repulsive charge over here for 3 red. 3. Such a low number, even Shuri can't help her. It's ridiculous. And it's good damage. Look at the damage. This is boosted, so take a little less than half of that. But for 3 red, that's ridiculous. Convert 4 random blue, green, or red basic tiles to charge tiles, and then add 3 overcharge points. Yes, 10 is the amount of overcharge points you need to short circuit yourself. So in other words, you could cast that 3 times before you even threatening being overcharged. Overcharged or short-circuited or whatever you want to call it. Anyways, an overcharged blast deals less damage, but it's to the enemy team and doubles the number of tiles converted and overcharge points gained. In other words, yes, this is what you want to do when Mighty Thor is your teammate, because you're getting 6 overcharge points, but you're getting 8 tiles turned to charge tiles. And remember, Mighty Thor destroys tiles adjacent to charge tiles. So Mighty Thor is going to go crazy with the amount of destruction she does because of all that charge tiles you created out there. This ability has a passive that says that her intelligent design passive, aka her blue passive, is always unlocked. It's basically there just to state that if you have a red cover but no blue cover, you're still going to have her blue charge tile, her short circuit thing come into play. You can't get away with an all red build Riri and no short circuiting. That's not a thing. And finally, there's Oral Assault, easily one of the hallmarks of her ability because of what it allows you to do. For a measly 4 green, she goes airborne for a turn and stuns 3 enemies, aka the entire enemy team, for 1 turn, adds 4 overcharge points to her ability as well. But every time 5 enemy projectiles are on the board, for every 5 enemy projectiles out there, I should say, the enemy is better prepared and a random enemy is not stunned. Again, this is a reason why Mighty Thor is one of her best friends, because Mighty Thor is getting rid of these enemy projectiles passively, isn't she? They're not out there. So then your 4 green team stun is going to go off nice and easy. Now, keep in mind that this puts her airborne, so she can't do anything else for the rest of her turn. Use her red or her blue first before using her green to send her up in the air. And this one, of course, has that passive where her blue passive is always unlocked as well. In other words, there's no way to build her without her having the ability to short circuit herself. Riri Williams is a really fun character at the end of it all, but the fact that she could short circuit herself and make herself not able to use her really cheap 3 red, thank you, and 4 green abilities, basically handicaps herself. Sure, you can cast a couple of times before this even happens, and sure, you can mitigate it by making some match 4s or just letting turns pass, but those are turns that the enemy is doing things to you and getting away with stuff. She only gets away with half her stuff because Mighty Thor exists. Her best ability is being Mighty Thor's best friend. All those charge tiles that Mighty Thor is putting out there are getting put to use by Riri Williams, and Riri Williams is putting out really cheap ability damage because Mighty Thor is allowing her to continue not being short-circuited. It's a really ridiculous team. It's well crafted. And it's a threat. It's a really big threat to any enemies going against her. But by herself, which is how we're ranking these characters, I mean, the fact that she short circuits herself, the fact that she has to pick and choose what she's going to get, and that these aren't fortified tiles she's making. Sorry, Riri. I think you're only mid without your teammates. And that's how we're ranking you guys. So, that's about it. That's the 5 stars of 2022. There's probably some disagreements in here, there, wherever, because honestly, I'm ranking them as solo as individual characters go, not as team packages. There's a lot of team play you could do in here to make these guys ridiculously awesome. You probably have plans or ideas of yourself on how you like to use them with your roster. Feel free to drop them in the comments on the YouTube vid, and be happy to go over them and like you know, just see, maybe we can compare notes. Maybe you got something I've never heard of before. I'm happy to share mine as well. So that's the end of ranking the 5 stars of 2022.